I'd like to just talk a little bit about a short uh, article that was written by Alan Watts that I've read, and I've also heard him in his talks discuss this idea before. I have the Essential Alan Watts on audio tape, and there's a few times where he does mention this. But anyhow, the story is that imagine, he starts off, imagine if you were able to live forever. You were immortal. Now, also imagine that you could dream any dream that you wanted to. So whatever your fantasies were, whatever was ever your total desire, whatever you could have happen, you would make your life somewhat similar to virtual reality. I understand that. Like where you're capable of, you can fly in the air and you can like visit famous people and you can go to exotic places, you know, fabulous jungle landscapes with flowing waterfalls and beautiful forests and beaches, you know, Caribbean, tropical, Tahitian beaches with beautiful sunsets and waves and, you know, water's perfect temperature, there's all kinds of life around you, and so you're in this perfect paradise state. And imagine that you got bored with that. And what other way would you distract yourself from having to live for eternity? So you go to sleep and you dream, you decide, I want to dream, I want to have an adventure, I want to have things happen and surprise me. I don't want it to be, because it's too routine, you're getting used to everything being the same all the time. So you want something different for a change. So you wish that you could dream a dream where things would happen to you and things happen to you like that surprise you, you know. So you do that for a really long time. And after a while you get bored with that. So then you decide, okay, I want something to really happen that will really that's unexpected, that's unplanned. So you dream this for a long time, things happen and they're kind of crazy, things are out of place, and you're not able to predict the future very well. So that happens, that keeps going on for a very long time, again and again, forever, for ages and ages and ages and ages. So then, after many cycles of this occurrences where reality happens and there's weird things that happen, things go wrong and surprises, then you finally decide to end everything. And so you wish that you would just go away and disappear and never come back again. So anyhow, Alan Watts' story is different. I'm telling it I'm kind of saying it the way I would think it may happen. If there is an intelligence behind that's driving evolution forward, then maybe it has some, like maybe it follows like along those lines. Anyhow, if you're dead and you're not there to experience the passage of time, because your brain is measuring time, you're hearing, you're seeing, you're feeling, you're touching, you're aware of different, where your positions of your body, parts of your body are in space. Feel the temperature, you feel the clothing on your skin, feel the air moving in the room, you can feel temperature changes, and you're aware of your surroundings, and that defines time. The passage of time is similar to you're a needle on a groove in a record, and time is like the record moving towards you and moving you and shaping you. So as you move through time, you're the needle on that record that's in that one moment in time. All the past is all the groove that already happened, and all the future is the groove that's going to happen to the outside of the record. Because a phonograph or a CD, I should say, on a CD, your laser beam is on one spot, and then it moves as the disc turns. The laser beam moves towards the outside of the CD. anyhow, getting back to the immortality. So the idea is that you don't remember it, but you're really God. All you out there that's watching me, that's listening to me, and every animal on the planet, every living being, every living thing that feels or that is aware that they are God. So what happened was the universe was a singularity at a point before time existed, and then that singularity fragmented, and it was like, they say it's called symmetry, where things are symmetrical and then they become unsymmetrical. So there was a moment, 13.7 whatever plus or minus so many billions of years ago, the universe started out of nothing. So there was no thing at all, there was no time, and then energy appeared. And then that energy cooled down, and as it was cooling, it cooled down into the constituents of the components of atoms, like, you know, photons and electrons and mesons and leptons and all of the, you know, the zoo of all the subatomic particles. You know, they coalesced from the energy. So the energy coalesced into these vortices of subatomic particles, and the subatomic particles then arranged themselves into you know, helium and hydrogen and deuterium, and the first simpler atoms formed first, and then those atoms coalesced into giant balls and giant spheres in space. Those burned into heavier elements because gravity was drawing the heavier elements down towards the centers of these burning spheres of gas in space. So then they formed clouds and they formed different shapes, and there were spiral galaxies, and then those eventually there was a certain quantities of elements in areas that formed that were able to form into life forms, and we just happen to be one of those life forms. Now, the other problem I have is the problem of time, right? Now, you weren't there to experience all of these events happening that led up to who you are right now. You weren't there, no one was there, it was just empty, it was just a measure, something that was not able to be measured at the time. There wasn't any brain, there wasn't any kind of nervous system there to measure the passage of time, which people could refer to as God. Now, many people's opinion that there was no intelligent design, so there's no intention, there's no, like, teleology, there's no, you know, somebody makes a blueprint because they want to build a house. There wasn't anyone intending to build anything. It just sort of came together and it built itself. Just the laws of nature arranged that were in the initial conditions of the early universe, from a very starting point. All the necessary properties of the forces of nature were there in the right proportions. So just the right amounts. It's called the fine-tuning argument. I think it's called the anthropic principle. I'll put a link, and then so the individual is just, we came out of that, you know. We're just like here for this tiny little moment in time. I remember I seen a geology show, and they were talking about the Grand Canyon, and the guy was standing next to the wall of the Grand Canyon, and there's this huge canyon, and then there's this tiny thin layer of material. It's like a couple of millimeters, and the guy was pointing to it saying, well, that's the whole of human history is right in that one little tiny layer. So not only is the scale of the universe immense, it's just beyond the scope of anyone's imagination as to how huge, how large, how vast in extent the cosmos is. So it's hubris on a human's part to even try to even talk about how what the scale of the immensity of that is in proportion to one's own individual consciousness in time, and I mean the scale, the scope of things. And then it's almost like we won't be here when everything ends, when everything either, you know, it's called the Big Rip theory, where space is expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding, and it tears itself apart. At the very first, it tears apart galaxies, and then it tears apart stars, and then it tears apart the atoms, and then it tears apart the subatomic particles, and then it just goes to a vacuum, a perfect vacuum. Now, who's to say there won't be another universe after this? So, you know, that's a problem I have. And then, as an individual, you could re-emerge. You know, but you wouldn't know you were before. So, it's part of my other talk where I'm saying, how can you? Because we're not responsible for this as individuals. You know, it was just like we were thrown into it. You know, it was like if you're ever at the ocean and you're swimming in the ocean and you're in a big wave comes up on the shore there, and you're swimming, and if you swim with the wave and you get inside of the wave when it's breaking, and you're there and you're falling in the water, and you're swimming really fast and falling and you're tumbling around and inside of the wave, you're like part of the ocean. You just came out of the ocean and you're just tumbling out of this wave. So that's like being born and tumbling into the world from the water, and then you just dissolve back into the water like a bubble. So in the scheme of things, we're just like tiny little bubbles. But the universe, I agree, the universe doesn't need consciousness there in order for it to exist. That's a fact. I acknowledge that. The problem I have is that if there's no one there, if there's no feeler there, or no thinker, no presence there, then how do you define a universe? You know, it can't be defined. It's like you're touching the tip of the finger with the tip of the finger.